Hello, IX ambassadors. I hope you are having a fabulous Wednesday afternoon. It's a little gloomy here today. It's kind of a bummer, but it's not snowing, at least not right now, so that's really great. I'm Meg Mankey. For those of you who don't know who I am, that's who I am. I am the COO and head of training for Rose Group International. And Dr. Rachel Headley is usually on the live with me, but she is not here today because she is on her way to Nashville. Nashville for a conference where we are showcasing our culture type assessment as a culture type match for recruitment efforts. So that's a cool new way that we are using our culture type system to make the world a better place. Okay, let's see. First, what are we going to do? First, we're going to talk announcements. So announcements for the day. I just did a class in Rapid City, even Monday and Tuesday this week. It was really great. We had people from a bunch of different industries, energy sector, government, military, Air Force, hospitality and city government, construction support, and let's see, who am I missing? I'm thinking about these people that were around the table. Consulting, because Bob Turnus, our very own Bob Turnus, came to the class. It's great to have him there. And yep, okay, I think that's pretty much everyone that was in there. It was really fantastic. It's always so much fun to see people having aha moments and jotting down notes furiously, thinking about how they can take stuff back to their place of work and implement it. So that was really good. We plan to do a follow-on class probably sometime in the summer. It's a 2-day course, 1.5 to 2-day course. It kind of depends on how quickly we go through the material. And when you leave there, you get, of course, a copy of the book, if you don't already have one, which probably a lot of you do, and access to this group if you don't already have it. And also you're certified as an IX ambassador, so you can go out in the world and use this good work to improve people's lives in their daily grind at work. So let's see, Rachel's in Nashville. I did a class yesterday. I will be speaking at an event for Black Hills Leadership Development Group in April. Got a couple of gigs. Oh, I'm going to Pierre next week to speak to the Sheriff's Institute. Then I got a couple of gigs in March where I'm speaking. I think we're also going to be putting on a class. Spoiler alert, I think. We're also going to be putting on a class in Denver in third-ish week in March. I think those are the major announcements for the day. So today we're talking a lot of it about team transitions and what it's like to have people going through. I gotta move a little bit. I feel like I'm a weird color. My skin's not actually that weird color. I don't know if that's better. It's fine. Team transitions and how all different culture types process change. And that change isn't actually scary, even though it is, but we can make it so it's not scary and not painful. Our favorite thing to laugh about, one of our favorite things to laugh about, Rachel and I, is when people say, oh, change is just so hard. And we sort of politely nod our heads, and then in the back of our brains, we're like, change is not actually that hard. So it's no different than any other service, though, or any other thing that you're not familiar with. Change seems hard if you don't know how to do it well. So if you're really good at something or you know a lot about something, it doesn't seem like it's that hard to do. Ooh, Katie Peterson is on here. So Katie works for, I think, CMG. Am I saying that right? CMG Mortgage, and she's a mortgage broker. So to me, it's like really kind of a mystery how mortgages work other than I know I have to pay mine, or like I don't get to keep my house. But she's an expert in what she does and helps people every day to, not only just get a mortgage, but actually realize their dream of having their own home. Change in the same way seems strange and unfamiliar to us, so it seems really hard because we don't know how to do it well. And so today we'll talk about how you can make change not so hard, and how you get a team through change, or start thinking about what's happening here. Nope, this way. Start thinking about how teams respond to change. Yep, okay, good. CMG Mortgage. If you guys need a mortgage broker, you should contact Katie Peterson if you're in the local area. Okay, so we're gonna go, if you have your book handy, we're in section 2, that's refine, and that starts on page 69. First, I want to talk a little bit about change is innovation instead of change is hard. So what happens when we're going through a change is there's an opportunity for us to be really innovative. And on page 88, on 88, which we'll talk about this in briefly now and probably more later, but the Kurtz change transition model actually shows you where that innovation phase happens. And when that innovation phase happens, we're kind of all over the place and thinking about all the different things that can happen. And when we're going through that, all of us individually, it just becomes really too overwhelming if you don't know how to deal with all that information coming in, and if you don't know your culture type and how you process information and how you like to work. So when you have an opportunity for innovation, it just seems like it's just way too much to think about. This is why people get overwhelmed, when they're deciding on their career, or deciding whether or not they want a new job, or if you decide you want to move, or even if you decide something simple like you want to eat better. Rachel actually got me a cookbook for Christmas, because I said to her one day, I said, I don't eat poorly. Really, I don't eat poorly, but and I don't want to be like a health nut, because that doesn't suit me. I like sweet things. I like savory things. I like bread sometimes, and I just don't want to. I know I will not succeed. I don't care to succeed at being like a super healthy eater. I just want to eat better. So she actually got me a cookbook called Eat a Little Better. And even looking in there, I didn't even look in it for a while, because I was like, well, I don't even know. There's going to be a bunch of recipes in here. I won't know what half the ingredients are. I won't know if I can actually go get them at our local grocery store. I opened it, and then it was like, here's how you roast a chicken. Well, okay, thank you. So change can seem really overwhelming because we have so many options and so many things are happening in that innovation phase. But if we know how to leverage that energy and sort of harness it and bottle it up and use it when we need to and how we need to, it's actually really exciting. So a few things that we have to let go of. These are sort of some tips and tricks if you're working with team transitions and trying to help other people through a change. A few things we have to let go of in order to see what our new normal could look like and get through that innovation phase successfully are habits, fears, and the familiar. And so in the book, actually, and this is one I use all the time, it's an Irish proverb that says, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. So every day you might stick with something familiar that you really don't like, but you stick with it because you know it. You know how to manage it. You know how it feels. You know how to deal with those emotions that come up. And so you stick with it. And that could be something like a bad relationship. It could be a not great career. It could be your weight. It could be lots of different things. It could be your music playlist. Like every day you listen to the same stuff because you're, I don't know, this is just what I know. If you're looking for a new music playlist, by the way, you should check out Spotify because they've got all the things. It's a great, the end user application is wonderful. Anyway, and so it's really easy to get stuck in that sense of familiar and staying there. And so a lot of times we'll suggest, if you are stuck in your familiar, write down all of the things that you don't love. And this is in the book somewhere. It's called Burn the Bad, Keep the Good. So you write down all the things you don't love about what's familiar right now. And then you write down all the things that you would love about something different, but you can't see it. You can't feel like or you can see it, but you don't feel like you can get there. Write those things down. What does that look like? So an example I'll use is when I started running, gosh, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I worked out and whatever, but then some of my friends sort of coerced me into some endurance running, which I thought was awful. Dude, I did a 10K. I was like, unless you're running from zombies or something in some post-apocalyptic sense, like why would you run 6 miles? But then I really started to like it. Well, you can't just like it and then not train or figure out how to do it well. So I had to really get rid of that familiar. And so if I were going to get rid of that familiar of I'm not a runner, I don't know how to run, I don't know how to train for it, I don't know how to eat for it, but I have to get rid of all of those things and all of the scary things that seem like roadblocks. Like I couldn't, I just don't run, so I couldn't be a runner. I'll write that down. That's on the burn the bad side. Or like, yeah, gee, my family genetics aren't made up for that. That was another one. I got really bad ankles, so it's pretty kind of dangerous. That's an excuse. So that goes on that burn the bad list. And then you want to keep the good, right? So what are the benefits? Or why do I want to run? Well, when I started, even though it felt like my lungs were going to actually light on fire and explode out of my chest, when I got done and my lungs calmed down, I actually felt great. I felt really great. And then I started to realize I had really good ideas while I was running, and it kind of helped me diffuse and let go of ugly things. And then, of course, I started to feel better, and I started to look better, really. And so those are the things you want to write down. Like, I want to look better. I want to be able to run a half marathon and put that in my book of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got that done. And so you write down all those good things. And so you look at that list of burn the bad and think, ugh. Once you write it down, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to think about those things anymore. And so you literally, except for when we did this in class, we ripped them up into little tiny pieces and threw them in the trash because I thought it might be a bit irresponsible and disrespectful to burn something in the university center in Rapid. It was really cold outside. I had zero interest in going outside to light paper on fire. So anyway, even if you don't have access to fire, you can rip it up in really tiny pieces. But you get rid of those bad things. And then you give yourself permission to never think about those things again. You never think about those things again. They're gone. And it can be bad things that people have said about you or things that you think people think about you, the things you think about yourself. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you get rid of it. And that helps you get rid of that sense of identifying with what's familiar. Because then you're like, well, I guess if I'm not going to identify with that, I'm going to have to find something new to identify with. And that's where the keep the good comes in. So you look at that list of good things and you say, okay, yeah, every day I'm doing this. I started running and I can do it. And I want to do it because it makes me feel better. I have good ideas when I'm running. I think I look better, and that goes back up to making me feel better. I'm setting a good example for my kids. So every day then you look at that list of things. We keep the good things. You can hang them on your mirror. My boyfriend keeps his in his wallet. We actually just looked at it last night. He found it, which I was really impressed that he still had it. You keep it in your wallet, hang it on your bathroom mirror, put it in your car, put it by the coffee pot if you drink coffee, somewhere that you're going to look at it most every day, or find it as a little surprise in the bottom of your purse and be like, oh yeah, that's right. The best thing about finding them when they're a surprise is when you've actually done the things. You're looking, you're like, well, I'll be darned. I actually did do that. So that's a good way to get rid of that familiar, and stop identifying with those bad feelings that you don't want anymore. In a business setting, if you're trying to help other people and you're trying to transition a team, you want to do the same exercise with them and have them write down. Well, let's use a software transition. Okay, so let's say you're switching out some software that you use in your office, and everybody's a little apprehensive about it. They're super familiar with what they already have. They don't really need all those new bells and whistles because they haven't used them in the past, so why would we need them now? So you can do the burn the bad, keep the good exercise with them and say, okay, well, what are some things that our current software doesn't do for us or problems that it creates? Well, 3 people have to finish this process before, or sign off on this process before it's done. And our system doesn't work through our email. So if someone's gone, we actually have to wait for something to process if one of those 3 people's gone. So you say, okay, so our system currently is preventing us from doing timely processing. So that's an example of one of the burn the bad. And you can go through all the different examples of things that aren't working well in the current system. And then you write down all the things that could happen in the new system. And sometimes we don't know what that new thing looks like, and that's okay, because you can just write down the things that would make you feel better or would be better for the team. So increase productivity. And so that would be something that would be keep the good, or something new that's going to happen that's going to improve the business. And then go as a team and drop those things in something fireproof, safe, outside of a building where no one's going to get hurt. Blah, 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 safety, safety, safety. And light them on fire and then tell everybody, okay, from now on, we're not talking about these things. Another thing you can do with teams is hang a piece of paper in the conference room, like one of those big flip chart pieces of paper, or I'm sure you probably have a whiteboard, and leave a little space on the whiteboard so that when people are having a bad day or struggling with letting go of the familiar, they can go write it up. So in one column you have bad, and then, or old, you could say old, if you don't want to really subscribe to the idea of bad and good. You write old thing that they're struggling with, like, man, I really loved it when thing, and then you can put the new thing that replaces that though. So like, but in 2 weeks I'll have that and this other thing. So this transition is really hard and there's lots of chaos going on, but I know this new thing is going to happen and this old thing is going to go away and it wasn't as good for us. So that's a really cool way to help teams sort of get rid of the familiar. And I think that the other thing that's probably really important with that is lots and lots and lots of communication about what is great about the new thing. And I would add to that, it's really important though for a leadership team to not completely disregard the concerns that people are having about the change. So we have a saying called close the gate. There are some things that as a leadership team, when you're changing over to something else, that you do have to close the gate on, right? So in our software example, we are transitioning to a new software that is not negotiable. Because otherwise people who really, really feel anxious about change would be like, well, we don't really need to transition to that, or could we look at 3 other products? And you're like, well, no, maybe, no. And if you seem unsure, then it makes your team even more unsure. And so there's some things that you have to close the gate on. And nope, we're transitioning to a new software. We did lots of reviews and research, and we find that this is going to be the best one for our group. However, I would imagine that brings up lots of questions for you guys. So what questions can I answer? So it's important to close that gate, but don't close it all the way on everything, because people asking for clarification on things is how they justify that they can, it's how they justify in their own minds that they can buy into this new idea. So if you close the gate on everything and just say, hey, listen, we're not going to talk about it, we're switching to a new software, get over it, then people are a lot less likely to actually, emotionally buy into your idea. Then they will not let go of the familiar. Okay, so then the other couple of things that you have to let go of are fear and habits. There are entire books out there about letting go of habits. You can't actually ever, you can change the behavior around a habit, so you change the habit, but you can't ever change the desire for that habit. So there's, anyway, psychology nerd. I could go on for hours about that. I will post the book that I would write. If you want to know more about habits and how to really get rid of them, there's a really great book about that, and I will post it when we get done. I'm making myself a note. But anyhow, in a habit, there's an antecedent of the behavior itself, and then the consequence or the result. And so you can change the things around all of it, but like the psychological triggers in the brain stay. And so, and the other thing that Bob Turnus says, Bob Turnus, hello, you can never change someone's mind about something. So what you have to really do is help them reframe around the idea. Okay, so if we'll stick with the software example, you can't go into Susan's office, who has used this software in your organization for 26 years, and Susan, we're just going to say, is a stabilizer, right? So she is like really dragging her feet about this change. We can't go into Susan's office and be like, hey, Susan, we're going to change this. Just get over it. Yeah, Susan's not, she's not going to, not going to happen. But you can help Susan reframe. And so like we were talking about with the burn the bad and keep the good, you can help Susan see a new world and why it will be better and how it will actually benefit her, benefit the company, benefit the people around her. So you can reframe that and then change Susan's familiarities or sense of familiarity and her habits. And then you sort of allay those fears so she's not feeling so anxious about what's going on. So those are the three things that you really want to help people sort of, I'll say get rid of. It's really hard to get rid of those things in full, but those are the three things you want, the hurdles that you have to get over before everyone's going to accept that a transition has come and is happening. So those three things again are habits, fear, and the familiar. Good way to think about those things and practice hitting those head on as a team are to use the burn the bad, keep the good exercise, which is in the book somewhere. You'll find it because I know you're reading it. Make sure you communicate a lot. Don't close the gate all the way. Let people continue to ask questions. You get to be, by the way, you get to be in charge of those conversations. You do not let the inmates run the institution, but you should let them ask the questions so that they feel comfortable about what's coming up. And then help them reframe those habits and those familiar things that they've been doing for the last several years. So that's an important bit. And then, okay, then we want to talk about the KCTM and culture types individually. But before we do that, I have to find the questions and make sure that we answer those. And those questions are, oh yeah, and where do I need to be watching Portland Fan? All right. Ooh, these are good questions. Okay. So the KCTM the section starts on page 88. And then the whole rest of that second section goes through not only the KCTM stands for Kurt's change transition model. So it goes through that and how the process of change works. And then it goes through how each one of the culture types processes change individually, so that you can start understanding how people on your team are processing change or groups of people, and why you find that some folks are like, okay, well, we're getting a new software. That's great. When are we going to have it up and running? I'd love to start trying things out. And on the other side, but at the same time, you have people saying, oh my gosh, I feel like this software is actually going to put me out of a job. I have so many questions about this, make me feel super uneasy. I don't want to have anything to do with it. So there's a reason that you have both of those people having those completely different reactions, but at the same time. And based on their culture types, we know this, and then we can learn how to help each of them through the change more quickly and effectively. So the process of change doesn't change no matter the situation, right? So it could be I'm not thirsty to I am thirsty. And that is actually, of course, that's a change in the way my brain is processing what my body needs. And it could be a change like we have the same software we've had for 15 years, and now we're transitioning to something new. That's a much bigger change and a different feeling, even if you're chaos tolerant, but still the process of how a change, I never can figure out where the camera is on this thing. The process of change is the same no matter what. So we have our normal, we're coasting along, everything's fine, and then we have our change event. And then we go into decline, and decline is where we're really not, we're stuck in our familiar and how good that feels, and we don't want to let that go. And then we end up having to let go. At some point, our brain says, whether it's influenced by an external factor or internal factors or a combination of the two, our brain says, okay, fine, I'll let go, and we'll see what happens. So that's let go stage. And that happens at a different point depending on the culture type, which we'll talk about in a minute. But as far as the change goes, right, so there's normal, and then there's decline state where we're not letting go of familiar, and then there's let go where we do actually let go of the familiar, and then we go into that beautiful innovation phase where you might feel up and down and all over the place and exploring all kinds of opportunities and what's going to happen, and then the change goes into the new normal. So that's the process of a change, no matter what, whether it's I'm not thirsty to I am thirsty, or 15 years of the same software to new software in 3 months. So the way we process change is different based on our culture type. So people who are a little more chaos tolerant, they have a lot shorter decline phase and they let go more quickly, but their innovation phase has much more wild swings in terms of their energy. They go from, oh my gosh, this is going to be great, to, oh God, this is going to be awful, I'm going to have to find a new job, to, yeah, this is going to be so much fun, I'm so excited for everyone here, to, oh my God, this is awful, I need to find a new job. So swings in energy for chaos tolerant people are much greater than are the swings for order tolerant people. Chaos tolerant are the fixers and the independents, people in the top quadrant, top two quadrants. In the bottom two quadrants, we have order tolerant people, stabilizers and organizers. And those are the folks that really want a lot of information, and they really want to understand why a change is happening. Because of those tendencies and preferences, they have a lot longer decline. They can have, if not managed well, they can have a lot longer decline, and because it's really a lot harder for them to let go of what was familiar. And then they get into the innovation phase, and they're pretty well settled because they have done all of their research and gotten pretty comfortable with the idea at the onset while they're going through decline phase and let go. So when they get to innovation phase, it's like, well, I already drew up the draft of what could possibly happen, and so here's what new normal looks like. Now, if you manage change well and you really understand those 4 different culture types, it gives you an opportunity to really condense down not only the anxiety of change, but also the time it takes to implement a change effectively. So by knowing those culture types and guiding them through the change well, your fixers and independents won't have as wild of swings in innovation phase, and your stabilizers and organizers won't take nearly as much time to decide they're going to let go of what was familiar and move on into this new normal. An important thing to talk about is that new normal, in all of our graphs and in the book and whatever materials you might have seen, it goes up into this is better, and up meaning the scale, the north-south scale on this graph is energy, right? So your energy actually goes up because things are better with the new change. Now, that doesn't always happen. That's not always necessarily the case. If change is not managed well for people, they can end up in a new norm that's worse or lower energy. And then they will probably stay there until a new change comes along and could potentially make that one thing, that part of their life better. So let's say we do implement the software and we sort of just say, you know what, we're doing it. You don't have to like it, Susan, but it's going to happen. And then Susan eventually, whether she likes it or not, will sort of not really fully let go, but let go enough to move on with the rest of the group and say, okay, fine, well, you can put this new software in, but I'm probably not going to use any of the new parts because I don't know anything about it. You didn't prove to me how it's going to help me. You didn't show me how to use it very well. You didn't explain to me why it's going to help our organization. So whatever. And along with those things will be all kinds of angst and animosity about why she wasn't communicated with. And so Susan's new normal could actually go down. And you know what happens when people's new normal goes down? They quit. This is why organizations have an issue with retention. If you don't manage communication well, especially around change, and things are changing in organizations all of the time. If you don't communicate that well, people's new normal is negative, less energy, and then it feels like that opportunity in their life is not serving them, so they go find a new opportunity. This is why it's so important to manage change well and help people through it and understand what helps different people through it. Okay, that's what I have for notes on that. So let's look at these questions. So the poll this week, there were 3 questions, and the first one that got the most hits, so we'll cover them in order of hits. I'm a leader in my organization. What do I need to be watching for when guiding team transitions? So we try really hard not to, we make sure that when we culture type people, it doesn't have anything to do with their personality or their, the character that's sort of integral to their person. It really has a lot to do with their work preferences. So you can watch for certain actions from different people, but be very careful not to say, well, this is an example I used in the class I did. John has fiery red hair, and we all know he's Irish. I'm using this because this is me. I don't have red hair, but I am fiery Irish woman. So not picking on the Irish because I can. I'm picking on them because I am. So we all know John. He has fiery red hair, and he's Irish, so he's just hot-tempered. That doesn't have anything to do with the fact that John may be a fixer or an independent or a stabilizer who's not all about the change, or an organizer who doesn't have enough details about the change. So you can watch for certain cues in people. Make sure, though, that while you're doing it, you can tie them back to some piece of a culture type. So, well, this person is really order tolerant. We've culture typed a whole organization because we are IX responsible. And we know that John is a stabilizer. And we know that stabilizers prefer order, and they like to have details. And they like to have those details because they really like to understand how a change is going to impact sort of everyone as a group, individuals included, but everyone as a group. How is this change going to make a difference for all of us? And so if John is being a fiery Irishman with a fiery red-haired Irishman, that's not why he's doing it. He could be doing whatever he's doing because he's order tolerant. He's an order tolerant stabilizer, and you have not shared enough details with John about what the impact is to the organization and all of its people. So he doesn't feel comfortable with the change, and so he's really dragging his feet about it. So you can be watching for a few things. So order tolerant folks, they might sort of start gossiping, or what seems like gossiping or backbiting, naysaying. This is never going to work. We've tried it before, and these people become their own worst enemy, because all they're really doing is looking for buy-in in some idea that they believe in, right? Because they have not enough information to make a decision about something new could be good. So they use the information they have, and then they go talk to people about it because they're team driven. So they want to know what everybody's thinking and how they're feeling. So they go and the water cooler talk is, gee, Joe, I don't know what to think about this. I don't really like it. What do you think about it? And Joe's going to say, yeah, I mean, I don't have any information to prove you wrong. Because if the leadership team hasn't given enough information, then Joe can't prove Susan wrong. Joe just says, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it'll work out. Well, Joe is not confident either then. So you could be looking for those kind of cues from order tolerant people. Stabilizers will try and communicate with other people just to create some buy-in or understanding of what's potentially happening for the group. Organizers are probably going to really disengage from the group because they're self-driven. So they like a lot of time to process on their own. So those organizers might become really disengaged. And then if you're having meetings about the new change or what's happening with the transition, they might come to the meeting, but then they just sit there and sort of stare off into space, completely not engaged with the group. One cue would be if they're not writing notes. Organizers really like to understand what's happening, so they're usually taking notes on their phone or writing things down. If an organizer or a stabilizer aren't taking notes, that's a cue that they're disengaged from what's going on. Those chaos tolerant people, they might just sort of go rogue on you, right? Independents, especially because they're self-driven. And then the other fear with them is not so much that they won't come along with your change, but what could happen is that they'll start throwing way too much stuff at the wall. So those are the people that you want to make sure you have close that gate and have things sort of defined as to what's in, what's we call WeWo, what's in, what's out, on what's the scope of the project, because they might just start like barraging you with, and then we should do this, and let's tag this onto it, and we should do this, and you're like, well, no. So if your fixers or independents are coming at you pretty hot with a bunch of new ideas, that's probably a pretty good indication that you haven't done a great job of communicating or putting some scope to what the new normal looks like. Okay, so leader, what do I need to be watching for in guiding team transitions? The other thing I would maybe say is if you notice some just sort of strange behavior from someone, that you could, if you think about it in time, like if you can tie it back to about when this change happened, or the transition started, then and so then now they're acting funny, I would check in with that person individually and say, hey, are you doing okay with the change? What questions can I answer? And you can say something like, because you just don't seem like yourself. That is perfectly acceptable to say that. And that makes that person, does a couple things for you. Obviously, you'll get some new information. Even if they don't say much, their face will tell you like, yeah, I am so overwhelmed. Or, no, I think it's fine, like apathy, maybe they don't really care. So it gives you the information you're looking for, obviously, because you asked a question. It also shows that person that you really genuinely care about how this change is going for them. And you care about them as a person. And that, my friends, is how you develop trust in an organization and create that culture that everybody will want to stay in, even if things get tough. Okay, what is the role of each culture type during a team transition? Okay, great. So what is the role of each culture type during a transition? So those fixers, they're team driven and they really like chaos. And so they're going to be out there saying, awesome, this is going to be great for the group, even if they don't know that that's true yet or how it's true yet, they'll say it. It's going to be great for the group. We're really excited for this opportunity. Hey, you guys, let's come into the conference room. Let's whiteboard about this a little bit. What are you worried about? What do you love? What do you hate? So a good way to engage a fixer is to sort of let them manage that opportunity for getting the project online, getting some buy-in from the other different types in the team, or even if the other fixers in the team, and letting them sort of run with the project. They don't have to run the project, but you can give them some part of it where they feel like they have an opportunity to be innovative and free thinking about what's going to happen, and they have an opportunity to engage with the team on that. Independents are self-driven, but they still really love chaos. And so those folks need a project too. You could stick an independent on a job that maybe no one else wants to do, or just something that you know you could give them. They have the right skill set for it, and they can go get it done without a lot of feedback or input from other people other than you. I mean, you have to make sure things are managed to success. You can't just let people go do whatever they want willy-nilly. But you give that independent a project that they can work on sort of by themselves, and maybe check in once in a while with the team and say, well, here's what I found out about this or that. Give them deadlines. Make sure they understand that you have the authority on the project, and that they have the right skill set to finish the project, and they'll really rock it for you because they like that opportunity to sort of go at it alone and think completely differently than anybody else. A stabilizer would really like an opportunity, a few things. You need to make sure that they have enough information. So let them continue to ask questions, and even when they think they're done, say, what other questions can I answer? Same with an organizer. Once that stabilizer feels pretty comfortable, they'll like an opportunity to manage details like logistics, or understanding how maybe a timeline is going to roll out and how it impacts each different person or department or group of people as the rollout happens. They're also really great. They could also be really great in the conference room, sort of with that fixer and being like, hey guys, this looks really good and sounds really good. They'll always say, there's a few things I'm unsure about, because they like order and details. And then really until something happens and it works, order tolerant folks are pretty skeptical. And so, but if you get them in the conference room with the fixer's going to be at the whiteboard, and they're going to be writing things down, or they're going to be saying, Susie, what's your new idea? Or Jason, what's your new idea? And the stabilizer is probably going to be taking some notes and thinking about how that's going to impact people and bring some really great insight where to things that maybe the fixer wouldn't think to ask the questions about. So that's a good pairing, fixer and stabilizer in a group. And then the organizer is really going to be the person who, like an independent, they're self-driven. So they're going to say, I'm going to go crunch all of these numbers and tell you all these wild ideas that are coming in from fixers and potentially a stabilizer, the pairing of those two. I'm going to tell you if that stuff's going to work, how it's going to work, when it's going to work, and if it's not going to work. And so an organizer, you really want to make sure that they have an opportunity to kind of sit in a quiet space or whatever's comfortable for them, so they can process the information and make sure, again, they have all the details they need. Once they're done asking questions, ask them what other questions you can answer. Okay, last question. I'm a new hire, or I don't think I have much power in my organization. Can I help guide transition? Our brains tell us no. Our brains tell us we're too young, we're too novice, we're too fill in the blank. The truth of the matter is, yes, of course, you can always impact an organization or provide some insight. And sometimes that insight is past experience. You know, I think a lot of times people make the mistake of saying, oh, well, Meg's new to the organization, so she doesn't know anything about us, or she doesn't know anything about that role. And the reality is, a lot of us have a lot of good experience. I got a lot of good experience in college in my groups, my volunteer groups I was part of. You know, I was the president of one of them and participated in lots of different groups. Shoot, I learned lots from playing high school sports and having two younger sisters that I beat up. Like, don't let yourself excuse or dismiss your life experiences as not valid. Everybody's got something they can contribute. And so, you know, don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, you don't have to give all the details, right? You don't have to say like, well, when I played volleyball in high school, you can say, you know what, I was part of a team once and we had a person who really didn't like blah, 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 and tell your story. So yes, it doesn't matter if you're a new hire, it doesn't matter if you're a young person, you have something to share with the group. there is a reason, after all, the organization hired you. So probably you should be putting that to good use in respect of the fact that they gave you the job. How specifically can you help guide transition? If there's actually a transition already happening, wherever you see things falling down, write those things down and provide them to whoever's managing the project and or the leader, CEO, or whoever the right person is. Provide them that information. Say, here's some things that I've noticed. We a lot of times sort of make an excuse in our head to say, well, of course, this person is the subject matter expert, or they've done 10 of these projects, or they've done all the research about why this is going to work. They don't need me to be telling them what's working and what's not. But a lot of times when we've got our head down as a leader or a project manager and we're trying to get a change going and on board, we can't see everything. We can kind of see this, or this. If we're looking up and thinking and being visionary, we might not see all of these things that are happening. So that information is really important for an organizer or a leader to have. Now, I'm not saying every one of them is going to be like, oh, great, thank you so much. There are some people out there who are not IX ambassadors who might say, okay, thanks, I really appreciate it, and throw it over their shoulder. But that is how you can impact a change, and just keep hey, I just noticed a few more things this week. Here's a few more things, or send them an email or whatever it is. I think the most important thing about that question, or the most important answer to that question, is honestly have confidence in yourself to raise your hand and be a part of the transition and be helpful. You don't really know until you try, and most people never even try. And so just having the confidence to ask one question or clarify one thing or make one suggestion is a big deal. So be that person that asks the question or clarifies something for the whole group. Okay, well, we have been on here for 47 minutes. I am 2 minutes over time. We have answered all the questions. Today we talked about team transitions, the 3 things we have to let go: habits, fear, and the familiar. How we let those go: burn the bad, keep the good. Make sure we're really communicating with our teams about everything that's happening. Close the gate on those things that are not negotiable in the new normal, but make sure you leave open the gate for questions that need to be asked so that people can be comfortable. Then we talked about the KCTM, the Kurtz Change Transition Model, what the process of change looks like, and then how each one of those culture types can be impacted in that process of change. And then the questions, of course, that we covered at the end. I hope you all have a really wonderful rest of your day. I think that's it. Oh, I will post a link to the Habits book also, or, well, a link. Yeah, I'll find it on Amazon. I can do that. I'll find it on Amazon and I'll post a link to it on the page. So if anybody really wants to nerd out, like, it's a super, not like textbook, not like academic textbook, but it's a pretty nerdy psychology account of how habits work. So if you have any bad habits, or you know people who do, that you want to help them through, it's a great resource. If you have any questions, catch us on here, ask any questions you want, or on my personal Facebook page, or wherever you can get a hold of us, which is pretty much everywhere. Have a great rest of your day. Love you all. Lead powerfully, change the world. Adios.